Kira, welcome to my channel. As you can see, there's a big stack of books here, 15 to be exact, because I am doing the book recommendation tag created by Steph Bohr, and I have 15 questions here. They're all bookish, and I have a book to go along with each one. 15 questions, you're gonna get 15 book recommendations, hopefully. The first question is a book you tell people is your favorite, and my favorite book is Redeemed by Lauren Asher, which is the 4th book in the Dirty Air series. This one is about Chloe and Santiago. We see Santi in, I think, all the other books because he is Maya's brother, and Maya's book is the first one in this series. So we see him throughout the whole series, and then we get to his book and something happens that affects his racing career, and he meets Chloe because she is trying to find her biological father, and he just so happens to live next to Santi. And I guess I'll put them spine out over here. The next one, I had a little trouble picking something because the question is a book that is your guilty pleasure, and as far as I can remember, I haven't read a book that I would be like embarrassed to tell people I've read. That's why I'm taking this question, but I'm going with a book that people my age, 20, may not choose to pick up, as in it's for a younger audience, and it's YA. In general, I like reading Disney books on Disney characters and stuff. I have a couple different series and just standalone books, which I honestly might do a whole video about, so let me know if you want to see that. But there's a series called Twisted Tales, which is reimaginings of Disney stories put out by Hyperion by Disney. They reimagine the story to be like the opposite of what actually happens. My favorite one that I have read so far, I think I've read 7. I think I've read 6 or 7 out of what is an ongoing series. I think there's 14 out right now. There was just a new release this month. This is What Once Was Mine, and it is reimagining of Tangled. Each book has like a tagline on the front, and this one is what if Rapunzel's mother drank a potion from the wrong flower. The golden flower is what Rapunzel's mother drinks because she is ill, and because of that, Rapunzel has golden hair that glows and can heal. But in this, I don't remember exactly what the flower is called in this, but it's, I think, silver instead of golden. So instead of healing, she harms, basically. Like I said, this is my favorite out of the 6 or 7 I've read from this series so far. My other favorite is the Hercules one, Go the Distance, and I also just read The Princess and the Frog, Almost There. I'm a Disney adult, and I am proud of it, so. Next one is a book that everyone loved, but I didn't like. I'm sorry to say this, but that would be Book Lovers by Emily Henry. It just did not hit for me in the way that Beach Read and even People We Meet on Vacation did. It fell flat. Well, not my cup of tea. They both work in publishing, I believe. She goes on a trip to this little town where one of her favorite books is based on, and she meets Charlie there, who is like an editor that she did not have a great first impression with. So they don't really like each other, so it's kind of enemies to lovers, I guess. But a lot of it is focused on Nora and her relationship with her younger sister, Libby, which was not what I thought it was going to be, so therefore I didn't enjoy it, and I was waiting for more romance to happen between Nora and Charlie. And also just the romance didn't hit for me, so. Number 4 is a book I read the fastest, and this is a recent read from a couple weeks ago, and that is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. This is, I guess, technically the second book to Mr. Wrong Number, which I read that last year, and the first chapter, this one is at the end of the book, and I was obsessed with it, so I was so excited to read this. I read this in one day, I think 2 sittings, I finished it. Loved it, didn't want to put it down, it was so cute and funny. Basically, this one follows Jack, who is the brother of Olivia, who we saw in Mr. Wrong Number, and also the best friend of Colin from that book. And Jack and Hallie meet at Colin and Olivia's wedding. Hallie is the bartender there. They have a one-night stand, and then they go their separate ways, and they find each other again on a dating app, and they make a wager of who's gonna fall in love first through going on dates on this app. And then there's also fake dating because they have to pretend to be a couple at Hallie's sister's wedding. A book that deserves more hype. This one, I'm going with a series, but I'm just gonna show you the first book. And that is the Honeywood Park series by Julie Olivia. I have All Downhill with You, which is the first book in the series. There's currently 3 out, and the 4th one is coming in June. It's set in a theme park, which I love personally. A giant group of friends. I love every single one of them. This one follows Emery and Lorelai, and she is a ride specialist, possibly. I forgot what her job is. I'm sorry. The most popular roller coaster at Honeywood Park broke down, and Emery is like a roller coaster designer of some kind, and so he comes to help to try and fix it and make it better, and Lorelai doesn't like that, I believe. The 3rd book is my absolute favorite, one of my all-time favorite books. Basically, there's a friend group, and each book is about a different friend. Number 6 is a book that is becoming a movie or TV show, and this one was just recently announced. Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is my favorite Emily Henry book, one of my all-time favorite books. This is becoming a movie. It is the last of her books to get a movie deal, right? I think Book Lovers got one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know People We Meet on Vacation is one, and that was the first one. This book is about January and Gus. They haven't spoken to each other in a while, but they went to college together. January's father just passed away, and he had this beach house. So January is going to his beach house to clear it out, get it ready to sell, and she's also writing a book while she's there. And then, lo and behold, her neighbor is Gus Everett, and he's also writing a book. They challenge each other to write a book in each other's genre. January writes romance and Gus writes literary fiction. So January takes Gus on fake dates so he can get inspiration for his book, and Gus takes January on like research trips so she can get inspiration for her book. Next is a book I've reread the most. Again, I'm doing a series for this because I read all the books the same amount of time, and that is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. I read each of the 4 books that are currently out 3 times. I read volumes 1 through 3 for the first time in 2021, and then the 4th volume was released in the US beginning of 2022. So I reread the first 3 and then read the 4th one like all in one go. And then the show came out. I was still on a kick after watching the show, so I read the webcomic version, and then I went back and read the 4th book physically again. So I've read all 4 volumes 3 times total, and I've also read the parts of volume 5 that are on the webcomic. 8 is a book from a genre you don't typically read. I picked a fantasy book because fantasy is definitely the genre I read less in. It's one I'm trying to get more into, and that is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. It reminded me of Teen Wolf in some way. I think it's just because there's chimeras in this and like weird creatures, and there's chimeras in Teen Wolf, so I was like, hey, I know that word. The tagline for this is, once upon a time an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well. Next is a book that deserves all the hype it gets. I went with kind of an obvious pick, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and it took me a year to start this. This sat on my shelf for a year before I read it, and that's because I feel like people either love it or absolutely hate it, and thankfully I was one of the people who loved it. It follows the life of Hollywood actress Evelyn Hugo. Basically, yeah, just her life. I'm not gonna say it just in case someone doesn't know, but I feel like the majority of people know, but just in case, I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna put it in a way that you'll know what it is if you know, but if you don't, you probably won't know. Basically, Evelyn Hugo, in her lifetime, had 7 husbands, but she had one true love that was forbidden. Do with that what you will. If you know, you know. If you don't, read this and find out. This goes kind of a past and present timeline because Evelyn Hugo has never told her story before, and then she picks this girl, Monique, and there's a reason she picks her, which you find out at the end of the book. But she picks Monique to tell her story to and have her write it, but Monique is not allowed to publish it until after Evelyn passes. I think this is one of my most annotated books. I don't think you can see that, but one of my most annotated books, and I really want to reread it soon, just because going through it a second time, knowing what I already know from reading it, I'm going to pick up on a lot of other stuff that I probably missed. Alright, camera battery died, but I'm back. A book I usually recommend when I'm asked for a recommendation. I don't talk about this book that much anymore, but I still feel like it's my go-to if someone asks for a recommendation. because it has a bunch of different things in it that I feel like almost everyone could enjoy, and that is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I still have only read this one. I haven't read Hawthorne Legacy or The Final Gambit. Definitely reading the Hawthorne Legacy, I think, either this month or next month. But I loved this when I read it. It has the vibes of Knives Out, where a girl who seemingly has no relation to this family is left everything. The house, the money, whatever, from this family's grandfather who passed away. He left this random girl his giant mansion, I think most of his money. I think he left some for his grandsons. And he loved puzzles. So it's also like an escape room because they're trying to figure out all these puzzles that connect to something that will lead to them finding something. There's mystery, it's funny, there's some romance, and you will probably fly through this book because the chapters are so short. And also you just want to know what happens next. It's one of those books. Next is a book that has my favorite character or characters. Since I was trying to pick a different book for each question, I didn't go with one that has my all-time favorite characters, which would be Redeemed, Chloe and Santi. I went with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder for Pip and Robbie. I just love them. They're adorable. This is the first book out of 3 of a series, and Pip is working on her senior project, and she's decided to look into a closed case about this girl who was murdered, and they thought they knew who the killer was, but Pip doesn't believe that is true. So she's conducting her own investigation, and then Robbie is the brother of the supposed killer, so she forms this friendship with him. I just love Pip and Robbie. The book I chose for this next one is also a series in general, and that is a book you wish you could live in. In general, I wish I could live in the Addicted Calloway world. I just don't want to bring up all the books, and this is just, I have them stacked, so I just grabbed the first one that was on top, and that's Addicted to You. This is the first book. The series, I believe, just started out with the Addicted series, which is 5 books following Lily and Lo and their struggles with addiction, and then you also get a bit about Lily's sisters and their lives. But then we also have the Calloway sisters books, which is 4 books, 2 about Rose and 2 about Daisy, and then there's a epilogue novel about all of them. And we see all of them in every book. In general, I just want to be everyone's friend in this world. Number 13 is a book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. This one was also a little hard to pick one because if I think I'm not going to like a book, I'm not going to pick it up. So I went a little further back in my book catalog to 7th grade and I picked The Outsiders. Since it's a classic and since I had to read it for school, my little 7th grade brain was like, no, I'm not gonna like this. This is gonna be stupid. And I'm probably just gonna skim the whole thing and act like I know what I'm talking about in discussions. This was my favorite book that I've ever had to read for school. And I reread it in 2021, 6 or 7 years after I had read it for the first time, and I still loved it. Not an absolute favorite, but my favorite classic that I've read. I don't know what the general consensus is of if people like it or not, but from what I remember, I really liked it. A book that made me cry. It takes a lot to make me cry. I have to be really connected to the story and the characters. Otherwise, I will just probably cry if dogs die in books, which has happened a couple times. There were tears streaming down my face while I was reading this book. Mostly the end because I was just sad the series was over, but also some other stuff that happened in the book that I'm not gonna say because I don't want to spoil it. This is Final Offer by Lauren Asher, the last book in the Dreamland Billionaires series. This one follows Cal and his ex-girlfriend Alana, second chance romance, which one of my least favorite tropes, but it's Lauren Asher. How can I not love it, you know? A book you wish you could read for the first time again. I have a lot of these, but for this one, I specifically chose 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I got the arc of this, which I was so excited about, and while I was reading the arc, I could not stop reading it. So much was happening. I had to figure out who was like threatening them. I was on the edge of my seat, quite literally. 8 hours, 6 friends, 5 survive. So there's 6 friends going on an RV trip. And then all of a sudden some weird stuff starts happening. Someone pops their tires and they're now stuck in this secluded area. But just the feeling of reading this was so exhilarating. I just wish I could read again because obviously I know what happens. So I wish I could clear my brain and read it again. that was my choices for the book recommendation tag. There they all are. I hope you enjoyed this. This was really fun. It was difficult to choose just one book for these prompts. Let me know in the comments what your choices for these questions would be. I will hopefully see you in my next video.